Welcome back to WRPL. It's the podcast where we talk about all the things we are watching, reading, playing, and listening to. My name's Ben.
And I'm Steve.
How's it going, Steve?
It's going well, Ben.
Is it though, Steve?
No, I'm pretty upset.
I'm sorry that you had to go through this traumatic experience that is this week's topic. It's going to be pretty much all Madam Web. It's going to be comic book heavy. No other topics we're going to talk about. I have a few things of news, but those are also comic book based. So, comic book episode, Madam Web.
Start off with a roll.
19.
Oh, this is going to be your episode, buddy.
Okay.
There's only one thing to top it, and it's going to be this. 18. Wow.
Maybe the highest? Or did we get like an 18 and a 21 time? Regardless.
Either way.
Okay, so I just want to start off on a couple of news type things that happened. We got the first trailer for X-Men 97.
Mm-hmm.
I was a big X-Men kid. I'm still an X-Men dude. They're my go-to. I care more about the Fox X-Men movies than I do about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which sounds kind of stupid since probably half of the X-Men movies are really bad. I love those characters so much, and I was a huge fan of the cartoon, even more than Batman the Animated Series. That's a wrong opinion. Batman is way better than the X-Men cartoon. There's a lot of inconsistencies, like Cyclops welding pipes together with his optic blast. Like, no, come on. You're pretty good with your characters. That's not how it works. But it's still a really good show that, pulled tons of characters. I'm assuming you did watch at least some of it.
I was an X-Men kid a little bit. I was more of the X-Men Evolution time.
Okay.
Was my
also a good show.
That was my X-Men show. But I was very aware of the 90s version of it. That was my introduction to the X-Men, because I definitely didn't read X-Men comic books growing up or anything. So a little bit of 97, but mainly X-Men Evolution.
Yeah, okay. Lots of stuff going on in that trailer. There's one shot. It looks like there's a guy in purple in front of, like, the UN.
Mm-hmm.
And it's from way far away. But if you, pause it and you zoom in, it looks like it's Shredder. And I'm trying to place, who it is. It's like a gray helmet, purple cape. I have no idea who this character is. It's not Magneto. I mean, it could be.
Yeah.
It makes the most sense that it would be Magneto. But, anywho, it looks like Shredder. And the Ninja Turtles were created with the same goop that blinded Daredevil. So technically, the Turtles are canon.
I would love that crossover. I'm a big Ninja Turtles fan.
But, they're owned by DC.
Sure.
So they cross over with them. But whatever. The big thing that I think I've seen, 400 times on TikTok is everybody just creaming their jeans over Gambit charging up Wolverine's claws. And I also left with soiled jeans. It's exactly
it's the coolest shot of the trailer.
It really is. And it's what me and my friends would do with our action figures. We're playing like, oh, well, of course he's going to do this, and then he's going to punch explosion you. It doesn't work that way. Gambit can't charge up anything living, so it's not like Wolverine's flesh is getting charged up. It's just his skeleton. But that's going to explode and blow every bit of meat off Wolverine. His brain is going to be completely turned to ash inside his skull. That's not going to work. I know in the show he's going to punch. It's going to be a big explosion, and that's it. Or they'll treat it like his blades are super hot, but that's stupid. Adamantium can cut through anything anyways. You don't need to superheat them at all. But that would be great if he does just explode completely, and then
he's just a metal skeleton, and then he just heals back over.
Slowly, they just scoop him up. They go, oh, there's a little bit of meat left on him. Put him in a back-to-tank, and he'll be fine. So I'm interested to see how that turns out. Wolverine's voice sounds a little weird, but that guy died. The original voice actor died years ago, so that's fine. And Magneto sounds awful. I do not like that voice. It works enough, but it's not exactly how I remember it. And I'm sure that guy's dead too. I didn't look that up. At least I didn't remember that one.
97 wasn't that long ago, but I mean, I guess it was
pretty long ago.
And if everyone there was like in their 50s,
27 years ago. Yeah. Yeah, and also, they better not change that fucking theme.
They're not gonna.
It better be. I don't even want them to remaster it. make it crisper, add a couple of extra bells and whistles. No, exactly the same. You could change the animation, that's fine, but keep that song the same. Second bit of comic book news, they finally cast the Fantastic Four movie, a cast that we all have known has been the cast for a while now, that they just never officially stated anything. Kind of a fun way of releasing the info with a little Valentine's Day card.
Yeah.
Normally it's a press conference, it's a Comic-Con appearance, but this was just like here you go. And I thought it was fake. I assumed it was just some fan thing.
Yeah, I mean, all solid choices.
Mm-hmm.
Pedro Pascal, obviously the hottest thing in media right now,
Sure.
getting
And
all
the weirdest casting, I think.
getting all the
All of them
roles.
seem spot on,
Mhm.
and he just seems a little. I don't know. I think it's almost like he is being cast because he's the hot shit and not because he's going to be a good Reed Richards.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't done any roles where I would think like, oh, this is the smartest man in the
Mm-hmm.
room. You would think like if they cast Benedict Cumberbatch like before he was Doctor
Sure. Yeah.
Strange and made him, it's like
Mm-hmm.
you go, oh, of
I
course,
get it.
I
Yeah.
get it. But I don't think he's a bad. I think he'll pull off the like two white strands of hair, or whatever, on the side of his
Oh
head
yeah.
very well.
Oh yeah.
But Vanessa Kirby's a great
Is
actress,
just
and
perfectly cast. I don't
uh,
think anyone could really do it better. That she just seems built for this role.
mhm. And Joseph Quinn is Johnny Storm. Not the most like conventional choice, but a choice
Sure.
I like.
No, I could see
Uh,
him being hot shot party dude,
no, I
ladies
can do. I'm
man.
not. I think he has the acting chops for it. It's just the I think so many people's ideal of Johnny Storm
Sure.
is kind of like
Chris
a Chris
Evans.
Evans type. Yeah,
Yeah.
just like your traditional
Mm-hmm.
hunk hot guy, where Joseph Quinn is a handsome man, but
More
kind of a
conventional looking.
more conventional looking and kind of only known for one thing, but he was like
Yeah.
the heart and soul of
Yeah.
Stranger Things season 4. And then the most kind of the not shocking choice, but like he's an actor that no one really knows who just kind of came out. I mean, he's been around for a
He's been
while,
around for.
but
He's a that guy.
yeah, he's a that guy.
He's like, oh, he's from that thing. You know the thing he's in, but you don't know
Yeah,
his name.
which I don't know if he wasn't on the Bear, I don't think he would have been
No.
picked.
No.
But because he's on the trajectory and winning
Mm-hmm.
Emmys and stuff, good for him. Eben, I think that's what it
Yeah.
is. Yeah, Eben. Uh,
Mossback, right?
it's got an interesting name. Point is, he's going to be the
Evan
thing.
Mossback. Yeah.
He definitely has the anger part down that we've seen on
Mm-hmm.
the Bear.
He's got the salt of the earth, normal man.
Yeah,
Like he's from the streets. He got into some fights. He's not the big smarty like Reed is, and Jewish, just like Ben Grimm. So
there you go.
it's a plus.
L'chaim.
I'm excited for it, and the look makes it look like it could be set in the '60s, or it could just be an aesthetic for that particular thing, or it's in the '60s at the very beginning, and then they come through a wormhole and now they're in our time, whatever.
Sure.
It'll be interesting to see where they go with it, because it's kind of everything's kind of riding on them. I think all the Secret War stuff. I think the Fantastic Four are going to be kind of like a big catalyst of the next phase, and if they beef it, I don't know if the X-Men can really save it. And also, I saw the first Fantastic Four, 2005. 10 years later, Fan Four Stick,
Mhm.
2015. And this is scheduled for 2025. It's like every 10 years, get a new Fantastic Four movie. I'm okay with that.
All right, see you in 2035.
Yeah. But that's when they have to recast it. We'll get part twos and threes of this cast up until then, but then they'll have to reboot it again. Anywho. But let's just get to it.
Sure.
This may be a short episode, or it may be a very long episode. I have thoughts. I'm sure you have.
Even if it's short, it's gonna feel long.
But we're talking Madam Web, a movie written by guys who did Morbius. Like their filmography is kind of embarrassing, as well as like Gods of Egypt, things like that. I don't know how, after the flop that Morbius was, that you would rehire these people to continue.
They're on the
with this.
payroll, man.
Get someone else, someone who actually cares about this character or this world. And that's one of the things that have been brought up. That they didn't make this because they give a shit about doing more Spider-Man movies, they're doing it to kind of either one, retain any sort of rights,
Mm-hmm.
or say, well, we did the superhero movie with all the girls and it didn't do well, so I guess we can't do superhero movies with girls. See, the woke left, they don't know what they're talking about. We got to get more straight white men in these roles, which maybe is, maybe it isn't. I just think they're just throwing anything at the wall, and they've never had a clear vision of where this universe should go. And so they just say, what else do we have the rights to? Can we do a Rhino movie? No, probably not. Okay, throw him in Craven. That's fine. He's an animal thing. Who else we got? We got all these Spider Women. What do we do with them? Can we do like 3 or 4 separate Spider Women movies? No, I don't think anybody's gonna get past the second one. And then the third comes out and they go, another Spider Woman? What the hell? So let's just cram them all into one. And if people like it, we'll expand on that. If they don't, we'll cut it and just get it all done in this one.
So what's this movie about?
Oh
then?
yeah, I guess I got a little too quick. What is this movie about? It's hard to say because it feels like there is an idea that got abandoned and then changed in post production, re-edited, re-recorded lines, and they tried to do the best that they could, but it's so incredibly sloppy. And okay, so I gotta do my thing. Like, Madam Web, more like, what the fuck are you doing, Sony? This is absolutely ridiculous. Like, the most I could write, I can't write, and I have terrible grammar, and I could piece together something better than this. This is a nothing movie. Initial thoughts, Steve. Did you love it? Did you hate it as much as you thought you were gonna hate it?
No, but only because I expected it to be an F, that I was not surprised by its awfulness. Don't get me wrong, it's still an F of a movie, but uh, I didn't go in hopeful and then left disappointed. I was disappointed the moment I walked in, so I kind of felt better by the time I walked out because I had vindicated my assumptions.
Sure. But that's a hollow victory. Like, haha, I was
100%.
right. Madam Web was a piece of shit. Like, yeah, everybody knew. Just like Morbius, everybody knew it was a piece of shit. Venom, I think people had hopes for that one, but
But
everybody
the
knew.
only reason I saw Morbius or this movie is for this podcast to talk to you about it. So
And you're a better person for
I
it.
need the hollow victories, and I understand why it's a hollow victory. But anyway, so yeah, within the first 10, pretty much the entire opening scene of like the whole Peruvian spider hunt or
Mhm.
whatever, like 45 seconds of the dialogue was like, yep, this is exactly what I knew it was going to be. And
Yeah.
so that just set the tone for the rest of the movie.
Mhm.
From the expositional dump dialogue
Every scene is that.
of that, probably the worst ADR I've ever heard in a movie in a
Yeah.
long. And I've mentioned some ones on this podcast before where it's just like, was that weird to you? And you've gone like, no, it didn't seem weird to me. And I was like, yeah,
Mhm.
the ADR sounded bad, but the Ezekiel Sims ADR especially, I couldn't tell if like that was his real voice or not, and or like when they were shooting, his English wasn't that great. So they had to get like another guy to come in, but like they couldn't make it too obvious.
I think it was
don't-
just
it was-
easier for them to ADR
Yeah.
him because he's by himself
Mhm.
or with Computer Girl, and you can throw in anything. Whereas if you try to ADR all of Sydney Sweeney's lines, well, you have 3 other Spider Women to
But
deal with.
the problem with him though is just either he was wearing a mask so you couldn't see his mouth move, or there were shots behind his head, or like the camera was very like the editing in this movie was so all
Mhm.
over the place. Like I never really felt like I was on his face for long enough when he was speaking.
Yeah.
So it was just like it was doing its hardest to try and hide the fact that nothing is synced up properly.
And when he's, Spider Man, or that his suited up version, he doesn't even have like a character name. He's just Ezekiel Sims.
hmm
They don't call him the Stinger or anything like that.
That's the other thing. It's there. There's no mention of Madam Web.
Mhm.
There's no mention of these.
Well, her last name's Webb, and you could say, Madam, your car. She's like, it's Ms. Webb. None of
Yeah.
this, Madam. I'm surprised we didn't get a line
I
like
couldn't
that.
believe we couldn't
Yeah.
did it, but they never mentioned her name. They never mentioned his villain name if he had one. He's the only person I really looked up after the
Mhm.
fact, just because I was like, is he made up for this movie or is he a real comic book
Yeah.
character? He is, and he's Ezekiel Sims, and his powers are essentially what's in this movie, so that
Yeah.
is accurate,
Sure.
ish. But yeah, like he doesn't have a villain name. The three girls don't never
Yeah.
get a superhero name
Because they're Spider Woman, Spider Woman, and Spider Woman.
Yeah,
You know?
and Madam Web, also a spider person, doesn't
get a name. Yeah, because
it's
it's
a
all
superhero
like,
movie without any heroes or villains.
yeah, this is the 15-minute catch up thing. Like the movie already exists. It's like when Dune 2 comes out and like here's all the information you need to know about Dune 1 if you're not going to see it to go see Dune 2. And this feels like this is just 15 minutes worth of information to go. This is where, or it's the prequel comic. You know, the movie's coming out, and here's the prequel comic to tell us how we got there. And they decided, that prequel comic, pretty good. Let's just do that. But going back to the ADR thing, Ezekiel Sims is in his Spider-Man suit. He's running around, jumping, and doing action stuff, and his voice never changes. Like when you listen to Tom Holland, he's and he's like out of breath, and you can tell he's like yanking himself side to side and affecting his performance. And this guy, he's leaping from buildings, and he's just talking in his normal voice. Like this isn't taking anything out of him. It's pretty rough trying to make it believable.
Mm-hmm. Well, since we're on the villain, let's talk a little bit more about the villain. Ben, what's his motivation? I mean, I understand his motivation in terms of. Let me rephrase that. Why was he so hell bent on getting the spider, and what is his job?
Fuck you! Don't ask too many questions. Exactly. He wanted to get it because you would think, he's selling it to someone.
Yep.
He's selling it to Oscorp, and this is going to be the spider that bites Peter Parker because I think it's, that spider has gone through time and stuff. That spider has its own backstory now. Before it was just a lab thing, but anywho, you would think that's what he was doing. So then he comes to America and goes, you know what? This is actually worth a lot. So I'm going to let it bite me in hopes I get powers, and then maybe I use those powers to become like a Kingpin type character.
Yeah.
I rob banks or something, but it seems like nobody in the world knows him in his suit out there because people freak out when they see it. He's not a vigilante. He's not some villain.
Yeah, we can only assume that he's never worn like the suit until this week.
Yeah,
and he's done nothing but amass wealth and power in the meantime. But to that, we don't know. He might have had wealth and power from the get-go, or not at all, because we don't get any backstories to this guy, or like what he does, why he has this like super nice apartment in New York City overlooking the city. What his deal is.
Yep.
We know nothing about this guy. We have no reason to be interested in his villain arc because there is none.
But he's going to kill the girls. And don't you care about these 3 girls, these nondescript, single personality trait girls? I think they're supposed to. The studio goes, well, let's just hire the 3 hottest young actresses we have right now, and then you'll care. You'll just naturally care. You don't want the pretty people to die. And then that makes the bad guy a good bad guy. It must be.
So let's talk about the 3 girls. There's the shy one, the smart one, and the
bitch,
the rebellious one.
Yeah, I guess she gets a little bit more because she's wealthy. Her parents, they all have a little bit of story, but she's wealthy, she's a rebel, and she's the rude upfront one. Whereas Sydney Sweeney is just glasses.
If your personality trait is glasses, you understand. So did any of them really stand out to you? Did you think that... Because here's my thing. None of them were great.
No.
But I feel like not Sydney Sweeney, but the other 2, they tried.
Yeah.
I think that they were actually okay. I think that... and I don't know their filmographies. I know that her character Arya is going to be Dina in The Last of Us Season 2.
Yes.
The other girl I don't think I've ever seen before. But anyway, I thought they tried their best with what they were given, and so I applaud them. I think Sydney Sweeney and Dakota Johnson both knew that they were in a dumper, and it's a little bit below.
I think Sydney Sweeney tried, especially she's not as hard as she tries in Euphoria. Like she really gives it her all in that, but I kind of believed her being a shy, dorky character.
I think she's a good enough actress to where she is passable in this, but I think we've seen her act really. I didn't watch Reality, you did, but she was Emmy nominated for that. She was Emmy nominated for Euphoria. She's a great actress. Yeah. We've seen her in other things. She is good in, even if the movie is just okay.
Yeah.
But
this is probably her worst performance.
This is probably her worst performance.
Yes.
It's not a good performance.
There were little things that I believe that she was an actual character and not just a caricature, maybe. Like the other ones played it up more, and I think she was more subtle. And that's probably just because she was the shy one. So she has to pull back, and the other ones can just go big. I don't know. I thought the three girls were all fine.
I hate to say it, but I think she was the worst actress of the three in this one.
Well, the other two, it's Isabel Merced is Anya Corazon, and Celeste O'Connor is Maddie Franklin.
Maddie, that's right.
Okay. But I'd say the worst actress was Dakota Johnson.
Oh, 10,000%.
Asleep. And I know last week I said, I thought I liked Dakota Johnson. And you said, name a good Dakota Johnson movie. And I couldn't. And I don't think I like Dakota Johnson. I don't think she has much of a range. And
I think she's a good actress when the role is tailored to her.
Sure.
But if you
I'd like an example of that.
I haven't seen enough of her film. Here's the Dakota Johnson stuff I've seen. The one scene she's in Social Network, the first 50 Shades of Grey movie, and she had a very small part in 21 Jump Street.
Did she?
Yeah, she was one of the undercover.
Oh yeah, that's
cops
right.
who were
finger popping each other's asshole. She was with that girl.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think in the Social Network and those two scenes, totally fine.
Yeah. Oh, she's in Bad Times in El Royale. Bad Times at the El Royale. She was in the Suspiria remake, How to Be Single, Black Mass. Yeah.
I think I'll say
Need for Speed.
I think she's a capable actress, and she isn't a bad one per se. But I think if she's in a bad movie, she definitely is not going to be the thing that carries the movie.
Sure.
And this is as bad as it gets. And yeah, just the absolute worst in this movie.
Yep.
I mean, I would argue that maybe the villain is the worst, but that's mainly because there is no character there.
And he's butchered in editing.
Yeah, where Dakota Johnson is a character that just fails across the board.
I have a list of things. I took some notes.
Yep, okay.
So we'll talk about plot and how things go as we go, but we don't need to do a beat by beat for this. Emma Roberts is in this movie?
I was surprised.
That was a jump scare. I did not expect to see her. And at first I was like, oh my God, Emma Roberts. No, that's not her. She wouldn't be in this. I'm like, no, that's her. That's weird. Who's she playing? Oh, just Peter Parker's mom. And then, of course, we have Adam Scott playing another Ben character. He was Ben on Parks and Rec. Now he's Ben Parker. So, Uncle Ben. And
honestly, I think Adam Scott's a great choice for Uncle Ben.
I think so too.
In a different movie.
In a better movie, yes. Because all the Spider-Man stuff in this is so unnecessary. Of like, oh, I found someone and I think she's the one. Oh, what's her name? I'll never tell.
That scene drove me crazy because it's like, we know
who it is.
We all know who it is. We're all here,
Just
man.
say
Just
it.
say it. And like, because the reason I thought for a second, I was like, oh, was he not saying the name? Because she's like, I was like, oh, it's serious. It's like her going, oh, we can't hook up anymore.
Oh.
I thought that was the vibe that was kind of going on.
Do you think they've been hooking up?
No,
Oh, okay.
not now. But like in the context of that scene, because it's kind of the second conversation we've seen these characters have. Like, if they're best friends and partners and all that stuff, like, why the fuck is he keeping this girl's name a secret?
Yeah. If it was someone she knew, her sister, her roommate, and he was embarrassed to say it because it's going to create turmoil, okay, that's fine. They could have made, what's her name? May, what's her last name? What's her name? Riley. if May Riley was Dakota Johnson's roommate or something, and he's like, I told you, Ben, you can't be hooking up with my roommate. If we're gonna have a professional relationship, I can't have you coming over banging my roommate. Something, but to not even say the name and then to do a double tease when they're playing the baby name guessing game. And I thought they were just going to say it because it's no secret of who these characters are. If you don't know who they are, then you don't know Spider-Man. But I just figured when she's having her visions and going like, oh, did we already do this? That they would have said the name and then she would have guessed it on the first one and they would have been like, oh, yeah, that's right. Well, I guess the game's over. Look at Killjoy Dakota Johnson over here ruining everything. But no, they just hard cut. Oh, his name is boom, done with the scene. Moving on.
And you would think, oh, you get to the end because ultimately this baby's going to be born at the end of the movie, where they'd be like, oh, what's his name? Oh, what a beautiful baby. What's its name?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, Peter.
Yeah.
That never happens. We never hear
Nothing.
His name uttered
Hi,
once.
Pete. I'm your Uncle Ben.
You know whose name does get uttered in this movie? Stephen.
Does it?
In the baby scene. Or in the,
when they're
in the name game, the first name was just like, John or whatever. And it's like, nope, not John. It's Stephen. Of course not Stephen.
Yeah.
It's like, man.
I wish we had a tally of all the time Steve pops up. Because I watched a movie called I Trapped the Devil earlier, and one of the main characters was Steve. And just like, Steve's gone crazy. Steve's a piece of shit. And I'm like, this is great.
Classic. But anyway, moving on.
Let's go back to Dakota Johnson as well. Her character is a sourpuss. She's very grumpy. She was an orphan and she never got over it. And she doesn't really like people. She doesn't know how to act with kids. She seems very standoffish. She seems like she should work in a library or something where, well, no, you got to help people there. But like, why did she get a job saving lives? And if her powers were around from the get-go, like she always just kind of knew a thing and it helped her save people. And that's how she fell into the job. I can believe that. But she absolutely hates people. Why is she an EMT? Or is she just like, I just like driving the van?
Yeah, it feels like, oh, well, we need this character to be like kind of a jerk, but we need to...
But she's a hero, a real life hero.
Yeah, but we need to prove that she'd be worthy to become a superhero, so we can give her a hero's job. So we make her an EMT, which to some degree I like because the typical thing is, oh, they're a cop or... whatever, or they're a nobody, where this is kind of like a middle road. So I kind of like that she's an EMT. It's like, yeah, I'm in the field of saving people, but I'm not super important. Like, I'm not the doctor, I'm not the police officer. I'm basically the driver who can like do certain things that may save someone's life. So that I thought was kind of interesting. Did they do anything interesting with it? No. But it's there. It's a thought.
They teach you about CPR and, tells the girls, don't let up. If, you got to go. If you get tired, someone needs to take over. And then we see her like stop giving CPR to a guy. I mean, it happens earlier in the movie when she's having the vision of the guy getting hit by the truck. She does like eventually stop CPR to have her vision and then looks back at him and like, yeah, you'll be fine. And walks away. Like, doesn't even take her own advice.
Well, let's take a pause for a second because that's another scene I want to talk about is the fire down at the dock scene. And you have all the chaos that's going on there. A bunch of injured dock workers. The fire and
this place is gonna go up.
Cops and paramedics all running around, and then Mike Epps shows up. And now Mike Epps was the guy flipping burgers at Peter Parker's baby shower, and so just like, oh, this is the captain of the paramedics or whatever, her boss that she's really close with. And then the very next scene, he's dead.
Yeah,
and she's just seems emotionally rocked by this loss. From a character we have only known for 3 minutes of screen time and have had no emotional connection to. We have no understanding of why this guy is so important to her. It's not like a father, like, was it a father figure who like, he's the reason she got into the paramedic force because he kind of like look out for her as she was growing up. And then he became the captain and they just had a close relationship. You get none of that. Also, Mike Epps is probably like the third most famous person in this movie, which is kind of crazy. Maybe fourth. If like, I guess Adam Scott
has more of a presence,
but it's just like Dakota Johnson, Sydney Sweeney, Adam Scott, I guess, and then Mike Epps. I think you could argue those two, but which is crazy that
Mm-hmm.
Mike Epps is
Of all people.
one of your big names in this movie.
Yeah.
No offense to Mike Epps.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, oh, I haven't seen Mike Epps in a while,
Mm-hmm.
but just also he's like a known comedian, and he doesn't give him anything funny to say.
No.
He's dead within 3 minutes of screen time, and it's
Yeah, and
I don't
do we
know if
know that he actually dies?
yeah,
We know that he gets hit and they're crying and stuff, but I don't feel like we got a shot of the body or them putting a sheet over his head to indicate
no,
he
you
was
don't get any of
dead.
that. But when she's at home crying, there was a phone call from from
Okay.
Uncle Ben, who's just like, "Hey, the funeral's today.
Okay.
You should really come down."
Mm.
And she doesn't answer the phone.
Yeah.
So he is 100% dead.
Okay.
Also, her hands were coated in blood. So
Oh yeah, that must have been, yeah. So back to Miss Webb. So her mom is in Peru,
Mhm.
I think is where they said.
Yep.
Trying to find a spider. We find out later she's trying to do it because what is Madam Webb? Cassie? Cassandra Webb.
But
Yeah.
they call her Cassie.
Cassie, yeah. Cassie is going to be born with like muscular dystrophy or something.
Well, we don't learn that until
the
way
end.
into
Yeah,
Deep Act
but
3.
this is why she's here. She's trying to get these spiders because they have amazing healing properties and yada yada yada. Her partner shoots her and everybody around to get the spider to do God knows what with, and the forest spirit people.
The Los Arañas, which is Spanish for the spiders.
Oh, clever.
Yeah.
They take her into a cave and they make a spider bite her, and then she's given birth to Cassie. And then we cut forward 30 years and
2003.
2003, which we did not. We'll get into like when it comes to like rewriting it, but that's a thing. You don't need to say a specific time. We'll get to it.
Okay.
I know it's because they want Tom Holland
Sure.
to be in this, but then they backed out of that. So
don't worry about it. Just keep going.
Why is she in New York? The forest people saved this baby and put her on a plane? Why wasn't she just raised in Peru to be a crazy spider person with them? What they are there to protect the people there, but they don't know who her mom is. Why would they ship her to New York? Why not to Nebraska or Florida or Europe? Why did she end up there?
Well, I imagine, even though that they are, I would assume, tribal spider people, they would go like, okay, someone's going to come looking for this white baby. They're going to find the dead mom and the baby is going to be gone. So we'll ship the baby, or one of us will get dressed, hop on a plane, deliver this baby to the American foster system. New York, I imagine would be plenty of cities that were closer, but they're like, maybe it'll be the best shot for the kid. And so they just kind of like drop it off. So none of that's explained. That's what I'm going to say. Like, that's how I would justify it if I was the writer. Well, it wouldn't make sense for them. Someone's going to come looking for this woman and the baby, so they just took the baby back. Because it's not like they hid the fact that it was her mom. Maybe she was raised for the first 5 years of her life in the jungle. Maybe. I guess she wouldn't be.
But she had a trunk of all the
moms. Like, it wasn't a secret that she was born in the Peruvian jungle.
That would have been something where she doesn't know anything about her mom, talks to an aunt, an uncle, some distant family member who had to raise her, or goes back to the orphanage, and they say, well, you never took the stuff, or we never gave you your mom's stuff, whatever reason.
That's where Mike Epps comes in. That's his mom, or her mom's best friend growing up.
Yeah.
And then that's how you lead that.
He was supposed to go.
He's
with
always
her.
been in my life from the beginning.
Yeah.
He couldn't adopt me for some legal reasons, but he always looked out for me when I was like in the system or
and
something.
And he got me this job, and I don't like helping people or whatever, but I owe him because he raised me right. Something.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense that this random baby being born wouldn't be raised by these weirdos. And even if they didn't, and they went to the local post office and just put a stamp on the baby's head and said, ship to America, like, why would it go back to New York? I don't know. So, our main plot,
We're getting to the main plot.
We're getting to a plot.
Probably should have opened with that.
Yeah, whatever. She's in an accident that awakens her powers. Don't know why. She was bit. Her mom was bit, and so she inherited forever. And usually these things are like, if you go by X-Men rules, like puberty-based.
Yeah.
That kicks in, your hormones are changing, and it activates your power. She falls off a bridge, almost drowns, and then now she can see into the future. but it's not like Nicolas Cage Next powers, where he can kind of...
Oh my god, I forgot about Next.
See every outcome of the situation. It's just, hey, here's a thing that's going to happen, and now it's up to you. Luckily for the movie, she is able to avoid death once she gets that vision.
Mm-hmm.
There's never a time where she sees something, get stabbed, and then we zip back out of it. Okay, can't do that. How about, and then we go forward again, and then she gets choked out. Zip back. No, and it's not her
No,
trying.
you only get one shot.
You only get one shot. And she's just so good at existing that she could defeat this Spider-Man person. But, of course, it's with the help of a car twice.
Yeah.
So her powers awaken, and she gets a vision that some dude is going to kill these 3 random women that she's coming across with earlier in the movie, and then helps him. And then he's like, "What the hell? Who is this lady?" Yeah, and he wants to kill them because they're going to kill. The 3 women are going to kill him sometime in the future.
He can also see the future.
Yes.
And he knows that his death is going to be at the hands of these 3 girls.
It's so stupid. Like, your villain in it, you look at Iron Man.
Mm-hmm.
Villain, superhero, they're both in Iron Man suits.
Yep.
That's just kind of the trope. Okay, so they both have psychic powers, but he can leap and climb on walls, and she can't. I don't think he should have the psychic powers. It doesn't make any sense. And he only uses it for this one thing. It's like his psychic power is just his death. He doesn't use it in any other way to, oh, she saw ahead and knows what I'm going to do. Well, I'm going to see ahead and know what she's going to do. There's none of that.
There's no consistency through the powers.
Yeah. Especially fucking Madam Web's with her ghost spirits at the very end.
We'll get to it. Because, it doesn't seem like this guy, like you said, can see the future. He can only see his death.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also a point in the movie where I forget what happens, but she goes into her mind palace or whatever, and then he's there and he's kind of explaining what his plan is.
It's the whole diner scene. She's looking in, she sees him kill all the girls in the diner while she's at the campsite, and then they have this whole psychic monologue.
Yeah, where they're like talking to each other, and she's like, "Who are you?" or "What do you want?" I don't even fucking remember. Yeah. But it's okay, so he can access, like, there is a world or a mind place between people. It's like, is it just anyone who's like any level of telepathic, or like who, like, can all the spider people like mentally connect with each other? Is that an ability they have? Because that's not something they like talk about.
Yeah.
They're precognitive. They can see the future, but now they can also see into each other's minds
and communicate
that way.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't anticipate the next person's move because he can't see the future, but he kind of can. It doesn't make sense. And it's like, if it doesn't make sense, that's why you would need to explain it. And they don't have any attempt to explain anything.
And he's been having the same dream, and
every night for
30 years
since he's been bit.
And so he's trying to get like super secret spy satellite stuff, access to cameras to hunt them down, because he was able to recall so vividly their faces that they could turn them into sketches, and then the computer was able to find them in real life. That's a pretty great memory of his, if he could remember their faces.
Well, I mean, people have done police sketches, and you'd be surprised at how like accurate they are from just trying to memorize them. Okay. So I'm.
You're okay with that?
Yeah, that's the thing I care about the least in this movie, probably. Is that sort of mumbo jumbo of.
But so then he goes after him, and he fails the first time. Did that change his dream at all? Because it's not like it all happens in one day and he doesn't get another dream.
We never see his dream.
We never see a dream. But I'm wondering, would that change things? Because now events are kind of playing out differently. Or would it not change because of his involvement, it's setting it down the path for him to be killed by them?
I would think it's one of those things where no matter what he did, it was always going to lead to that. but then you get to the end and it's not
And
that.
it's not that.
But we'll get to that. Let's go through all the other things. Let's save the finale for the finale.
Okay.
What else you got?
So since we're at the diner scene, I mean, not chronologically and us telling the story, but
Who cares?
they're trying to hide out, and of course the girls make the dumbest decision ever to like be just like loud and very obvious. And some dude reads a newspaper that says like the girls are missing. That happened earlier in that day. I don't know how that newspaper got printed, but and so she's at the campsite and she has her little psychic vision of what's his name? Obadiah Stane? What's his name?
Ezekiel
Sims. Killing the girls, and while it's happening, like Toxic is playing. And she walked to the diner and they said it was about a half mile away. So then
picking up all the things.
So then she comes out of the vision and goes like, oh no, they're gonna die. And Toxic comes on immediately in the car. And so she gets in her car and is driving to the diner, and it seems like it takes even longer to get to the diner in the car.
Well, see, when they're in the woods, they said it's a half a mile away, which I would think would take you longer to get to if you're walking. Like, the song would be way over. Like,
oh, yeah, for sure.
Half a mile isn't far, but also isn't super close if you're just walking.
Toxic's probably 3 minutes.
I'll allow this for the sake of, one, just building tension that it took longer in the car. But two, I'm going to say it was a direct line to the diner where, like, the roads were winding in. You had to go out and come back in. And all that stuff. So I don't have a problem with that. But when Toxic came on and she was still a half a mile away, I was like, that's not possible. No. What the fuck is this?
Yeah, especially when you saw in your vision that you walked there and that song didn't play yet.
Yeah, lazy filmmaking.
And then, okay, so she's driving and she's stuck behind like a big truck. And she's trying to get around it, but there's other people in the other lane. And then at the last second, she gets in front of them and cuts and makes a right in front of it, right into the parking lot. Like, dude, if you just wait 2 seconds, it would have been your turn to make a right in there. Why'd you turn in front of that car and almost cause an accident and have yourself killed when you could have just waited a second?
She can't spare a second. It's all too important. We got to save these girls.
But there is a shot that I do like when her and Evil Spider-Man are fighting, and he like flips her, and he flips to the ceiling, and the camera just like rotates with it.
That's one of the things that I thought was like almost maddening, because it seems like there were times where they're like, there's the potential for interesting camera work in this movie, and it like kind of tries, but because it happens so quickly and it never lingered long enough to like for you to appreciate the shot. I kind of forgot about the shot.
There's like him running on the side of buildings, since he doesn't have web shooters. He's just running on the buildings, and the whole view is sideways, and it looks pretty cool. But every time he was about to leap off, it's like he was kind of making the motion for it, and they cut so quick. Like, we don't have wire work budget, so just pretend. Well, you want me to jump in the air? No, you're gonna sprain your ankle. So just cut it so quick. All the action with him leaping, which can be a cool function, just looked really cheap. And a lot of the effects didn't bother me. You know, the Mind Palace stuff didn't bother me.
The only effect that really bothered me was the spider people running through the trees. Like, that's why I was like, this can't be the CGI you open with.
Yeah, just like Tarzan or something, but not nearly as cool, and it looks so silly.
Yeah, that was the only.
I love that.
That was the worst shot in the movie.
Yeah, 100%.
I think.
Let's see. What else is? Just cringeworthy dialogue. You wouldn't like me when I'm hangry. I'm surprised it's taken this long for anybody to make that joke. I've never heard it before. But they say it twice, and it's just embarrassing.
Yeah, there was attempts at humor in this movie, and there was some that almost probably like it might have made my lip curl in a more upward motion, but didn't get a single chuckle from me.
No.
I mean, if I laughed, it was just out of sheer embarrassment of what the fuck I was watching.
I think the only time I laughed was when one of the girls almost gets run over by the ambulance, and she flips her off, and she goes, "Who flips off an ambulance?" And it's like, that's true. Flipping off a cop? I get it. Nobody flips off the fireman. Nobody flips off an ambulance. They're doing their job. You got to be a real piece of shit to flip off an ambulance.
But that's how you know she's rebellious. She doesn't play by the rules.
But there is a part where she hits Ezekiel Sims with an ambulance, and like just kind of comes out of nowhere, like 2 stories off the ground and hits him. It's like he jumps into it. He could have ducked.
Yeah.
He saw it and just like wanted to take it and just jumped right into the ambulance. Really silly effect. Funny. That I think that's the point I laughed out loud.
Okay.
But how many people were in your theater?
It was in the biggest theater that our theater has, and I'd say it was a third full. It was actually a solid number in there.
I was the only one in my theater.
Oh.
Now I did go Wednesday morning, like the first showing, because I had to see it before work. No one else in my theater, all by myself. So I really wanted to watch it with a group. Were people laughing in your theater?
Absolutely. Well, there was a row of teenagers who were like kind of talking and giggling, but I think it was just more of just like them just
teenager
being
bullshit.
teenagers.
Okay.
But luckily they were just quiet enough to where it wasn't like a hindrance to me watching the movie where I'd be like, oh, I can't.
Yeah.
I'm gonna punch a teenager. But I don't think I heard a laugh or any. It was dead silent, really, other than the teenagers who were kind of just giggling amongst themselves.
Do you think this is worse than Morbius?
I've been struggling with this question because the thing is, after watching Morbius, I kind of just blocked all of that out. I can't, because once again, Morbius was exactly what I thought it was going to be, which was a big piece of shit. I would say that it's probably a better movie, but Morbius might have been more entertaining.
Okay.
But they're so close together that they'd be a great double feature of just like worst superhero movies ever made.
Yeah. I would say
I came out of both of them hating both of them. And
I think the only redeeming quality of Morbius is Jared Leto looks pretty good as Morbius. Sure. The effects of his face are pretty good, but like him dashing around with all the colorful smoke trails, it's like a video game more than a movie.
And I feel like his Morbius's villain was 10 times a better villain than this villain.
Sure, even if it is the trope of I just am your powers but bad.
Yeah.
I felt Morbius is bad and boring, and this is bad and stupid.
Sure.
This is it's not competently made. I think Morbius, at least, is kind of put together a little bit better. Yeah. It doesn't feel like it's been hacked to death in the editing room. But I would say if I had to rewatch one or another, I'd probably rewatch Madam Web.
Really?
Yeah, I think there's more to like in the so bad it's fun category, where in Morbius, it's so bad it's just bad. It's not fun.
Yeah. Not to be all negative, movie's under 2 hours, and honestly, I think this movie kind of flies by.
It does, yeah.
I'll say that pacing is not its issue.
Yeah, no,
it's everything else. Yeah. And if everyone's, I think everyone's going to shit on this movie. It's got a 3.8 on IMDb. It's last time I checked, it had a 17% on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah. It is just getting.
This movie was never, even if it is like, oh, okay, that wasn't as bad. People are still going to shit on it.
Yeah, this movie I think will be among the pantheon of when they talk about superhero movies, which is one of the worst ones. It's going to be like this and Catwoman. Or something. You know, there's very few redeeming qualities, and if the people who go like, is it really that bad? It's like, not really. Like, it is watchable, but if you know anything about filmmaking or the characters that are in it, it does none of them justice.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about Madam Web or the Spider Society or these girls or Ezekiel Sims until this movie. This is my first introduction to these characters, and I walked away still not knowing anything about them really.
Yeah.
And but I know that this is not doing the characters justice because those characters are heroes, and no one's a hero in this movie. No. Madam Web is, I guess. But you never see her don her suit until the end, which is only a flash forward, not even a flash forward, a vision of herself in the future in this costume. She never really becomes a superhero. She's just a person with powers. Yeah. And it's so boring.
I'm fine with her being the Batgirl character, the person in the chair who just doles out missions. Yeah. That's totally fine. But I think getting to that point of, like, she got hit in the face with some Pepsi logo and went blind.
No, she got hit in the face with a firework.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, a firework. And goes blind. It only looked like it hit one eye, but whatever.
It did. Yeah, it did.
But how did she get paralyzed? This is just impact of the water?
No, well, maybe.
That should have been Ezekiel Sim, like, stabbing her through the back or whatever, and then flinging her off, and then the girls get to team up and actually kill him. Something. But she's in a wheelchair, and I'm like, but for why?
Yeah. Well, when she was in the hospital bed at the end, you know, okay, you see her get hit in the face, you see the mask over. Okay, I know she's blind.
Mm-hmm.
But then when she shows up at the end and she's in the chair, it's like, oh, well, yeah, I guess she did have that muscular thing. Was that part of it? Or was it just the hit to the what? I didn't realize she was in a wheelchair until she was suddenly in one. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, not explained well at all. So when they're at the final fight, and they're they're driving with the ambulance, and they're like charging to shock him when he's on the roof, and then they crash into the previously what I thought was collapsing, burnt down firework factory on the pier, where there's still plenty of fireworks that didn't go off from the first fire that we saw.
Oh, you think that was the same building?
I believe. Yeah, because that's why she took him there, because she was saying, like, this place is dangerous, we're going to get him in here, and the building was going to collapse on him, and that's how we're going to defeat him.
Oh, I thought she saw a vision of the fireworks in there, whatever, and so that's why we need to go in here because I know this will work.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that's what it was. Because...
Okay.
Well, let me just say this.
Because it's on the docks.
Yeah, it's on... Well, it's New York City. Everything's
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Here's my question. I don't know enough about marketing and signs. So you go to this abandoned firework factory.
Yeah.
Why has it got a giant Pepsi sign on it?
Because Pepsi paid for it to be there in the movie.
I understand that. But in the real world, is that something that happens where, like, someone will put a giant Pepsi Cola logo on top of your business?
Well, I mean, you look at Times Square, and there's a lot of billboards for other things on buildings.
If it was a billboard, I'd understand that. Ask no question.
But maybe it was an old
But a giant neon... Was it a Pepsi factory?
It was a Pepsi factory that they then changed, and then someone bought it, and the Historical Society said you can't tear down the sign, but you can occupy it with your fireworks.
It's really not that important of a detail.
Which, are fireworks legal in New York?
I
don't
doubt
think
it.
they are. I don't think they are. All right, so then they show up, and she gives them all flares so they can set off these fireworks and stop the bad guy. She also has like a bunch of gas grenades. Are those standard in ambulances?
No, I was trying to think, like, wait, were they gas grenades? Because I just thought, like, oh, maybe the flares were, like, the thing that was causing the smoke.
They were gas grenades.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have no clue. I would assume no, because I can't see the purpose of gas grenades in an ambulance.
Yeah.
But sure.
And then we get our... In Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, we got our with great power comes great responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the Amazing Spider-Man, it was some convoluted, if you have the ability to do something, you have an obligation to do it. If you have the power to do something, you have an obligation to help people.
It's your responsibility.
It was like, we can't say the same thing, even though that is a classic Spider-Man phrase. We got to change it to something else. And now in this one, we get, if you take on the responsibility, great power will come.
Mm-hmm.
And she comes to this realization at the end of like, I'm responsible! And then she can project herself into 3 different spots to save the girls who are all falling off the roof.
Well, let me backtrack for 1 second.
Okay.
Actually,
I think it's sounding better now that it fucked up. Anyhow, go on.
Anyway, so let me backtrack here for 1 second. I just want to point out that, but to preface this new power that she had, she was trying to figure out how to use her powers. And she's like, let me go back to the source.
Mm-hmm.
So she goes back to the Peruvian jungle where she runs into the guy who basically did her birth, and it's just like, at the beginning of the movie says, one day you will come back here and I'll be waiting for you. And
how'd she get on a plane? She's wanted by the police. This is post 9/11.
Shut the fuck up, man. Oh, yeah. Yikes. And so she goes back to the jungle, finds this, is trekking through the jungle for like 10 minutes, and then this guy shows up. He's like, I've been waiting for you.
Yep.
But he's not his scary, painted red, covered in black vine Spider-Man outfit. He is just a dude.
A dude, yeah.
And which is like fine, because if you walk through the jungle.
It's my day off.
Yeah. If you walk through the jungle and see a spider person, you'd be scared. Where this is just like, hey man, I'm meeting you on your level, which is fine. And takes her to the pool where she was born and her mom died. And he basically is just the mentor character that isn't really a mentor. I don't even know if this guy has a name or if he's just head spider guy. Because this seems like the kind of character who, you know, I know he's not Peruvian, but it's just like you get Antonio Banderas to play him, and it's just like, oh, a fun celebrity cameo who is just like, okay, this will be a character who will come back in future installments.
Yeah.
He will be my wise Spider-Man mentor who can like guide me into the use of my powers and train me.
His name is Santiago.
Oh, of course it is. But he's just like, in order for you to see the future, you have to see the past as well, and pushes her in the pool to where she goes back even before she sees the time before she was born, where her mom is 7 months pregnant or whatever, and the doctor
talking to the doctor,
and the doctor's like, hey, your daughter has this rare disease, she won't live very long once she's born or whatever. And so that's why she goes into the jungle 9 months pregnant, and then Dakota Johnson puts on an acting showcase for the ages where she's like, oh, you did want me. I spent all this time being mad. She was like, you were so mad at your mom for going to the jungle and dying, which I like get because, you know, your mom wasn't there and you were raised in the foster system.
Yeah.
But then you have this emotional connection scene where the mom can see her, I guess, and they embrace, and she has this emotional catharsis, which why would I care about this? Like, it's trying to have this heartwarming. It's trying to give this movie emotion where I've spent the past hour and a half not caring about this character or her journey. So her emotional journey, I'm not invested in at all. And then I'm confused by the power because it should just be like she can see the past, but now she's kind of like interacting with it, even though she's not changing it. So it's just a vision, or because then if it's just a vision, it's just something that's in her mind that isn't actually like, shouldn't give her the catharsis to heal because it's just made up in her mind.
Yeah.
Or is she actively going back and finally having the conversation that she always wanted?
Because her mom got bit by the spider, so they're all connected by the spider.
Is that
juju.
it?
I guess. I'm trying to explain.
Yeah. But that's something that, once again, the movie doesn't explain. Like, do these spiders... If all you had to do was go, the interesting thing about these spiders is there is almost a hive mind, even though they still have their individuality. I apologize for that accent. But
cancel them.
But there's nothing there. If there was some sort of... If all the spiders can talk to each other telepathically. So you can do it with all the other spider people.
Sure.
And it's the one line of dialogue could have fixed all that problems. Didn't fucking matter. It's just like, yep, she healed with her mom. Yep. Isn't that nice? It's like, who fucking cares? So then to fast forward to what you were saying, where she now has some control over her abilities because she's going through the factory. She got a Captain America shield and she's blocking fireworks that are blowing this building all to shit, and is able to astral project herself in, because all three girls are dangling above flaming fireworks, and the guys, it's the Spider-Man thing with the boxcar Green Goblin or whatever. And it's
but
just
now
like,
you could cheat.
Yeah, it's just like, you can't save all three of them, but she can, because she can kind of travel between futures and give her astral projected self,
she took on the responsibility,
a physical form to help these girls, so she can kind of make copies of herself, which we've never seen her practice. Never seen the spider people do. Never seen the spider people explain you can do that. And now here's, because the only evidence that she could kind of do this was the mom scene, but it was nothing. They didn't look anything like that.
That should have happened in the diner scene. She realizes Toxic's on the radio. I can't get there in time. She astral projects herself and talks to the girls. And maybe only the girls can see it. It's all in their head. And maybe she's not actually there, where all the diners are like, who the fuck is this? Why is there a ghost here? that would have been a good point for her to say, "Hey, get out of there. He's coming after you." And then zip back into her head. Oh my God, what was that? And like you're like, you were there, you saved us. I'm like, no, but I never left here. How could that be? Something. Mm-hmm. But it's like, nah, we're just gonna give her this super crazy convenient power at the very, very end.
Because when we see the astral projection versions, it just looks like a ghost version of her. We're like, wouldn't it be interesting if she did that, but it looked like she walked into the diner and she got stabbed like in the fight scene, but as the thing like disappeared.
Yeah.
So it's just like you thought she was there, so that's how she's able to sort of have these visions, because they can actually happen without hurting her or something. I don't know. Yeah. It's dumb either way, but that whole sequence was just silly, and I rolled my eyes and I wanted to groan. I was like, I can't. I'm so excited this movie is almost over.
And then he falls off and dies.
But here's my problem with that: is you saw him get hit by a car earlier. That would hurt. But people get hit by cars in the Bible time.
And he's a Spider-Man.
He's a Spider-Man. And then you see him get hit by a car that went through the second or third story of a building that he jumped into. That should have killed him. And then he falls off a building and is hit by a sign. Which I would say is of equal damage to the moving vehicle.
Sure. Or less.
And that's the thing that killed him?
Unless it knocked him out enough that he just drowned.
But no, he was on flat ground.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like, he was crushed, she fell into the water.
And maybe that's the thing is, well, he's not dead. Because they never say, like, the body of business tycoon Ezekiel Sims was found. It's just like, he got away. And he said, okay, I live to fight another day.
I mean, I would expect him to still be alive, because that's the other not weird thing. It's a dumb thing. Is they're fighting and she's just like, that's the thing about the future. It was never the girls who were your downfall. It was me. And it's okay. Was it? Why?
But his vision never had you. He didn't know who you were.
It's like, were you able to change the future because that's your power? Or the future isn't written? Okay, I get that. So the things can change, but like the three girls were still there at his death, but now Dakota Johnson, it wasn't in the future where he was gray-haired and they had powers.
And they had powers and suits.
Like, so if she was always destined to be his downfall, why it my head hurts. It just doesn't make any sense. I think I would just like to talk to the writers and see what their thought process was, or if anyone on the crew could explain to me why anything that was happening in this movie was happening, and if it made sense, if it even made sense to people, or was everyone involved in this like, I know this doesn't make sense, but we're all getting paid a bunch of money to make it, so it is what it is.
It is what it is.
And it was just flabbergasting. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
The one last thing. So we see...
Before we get to the end? The end.
This is the end. This is what I'm talking about. So we see a vision of the future. All the girls are living together in their cute little New York apartment.
Yeah, she adopted all of them, I guess.
But they were all almost 18 anyway, so it's fine. And she's talking about, you guys are going to do great things in the future. I'm totally going to like make you guys get bit by these crazy spiders. Do they even know that they have powers? She just says, like, I see you doing good things. Like, I think I would want to know that. Like, I'm going to be a vigilante? Oh, that's weird. Like, oh, yeah, I'm going to have a spider bite you and it's going to give you power. Like, that's fucking weird. But anywho, we see them each kind of do their own little thing. And I believe it's Sydney Sweeney's, but it could be one of the other ones. I don't remember. But there's a guy being attacked that I think is supposed to be Uncle Ben's killer from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. He kind of looks like he has the same outfit and hair and the little beanie. I think they threw that in as a little Easter egg. I haven't seen anybody else talk about that, but I think one of the people they stop is Uncle Ben's future killer.
Okay. Let me ask you this also. Now, I'm sure this is just they've become Spider Women in the next 3 years. They're not. This isn't the Spider Society or whatever after Spider-Man comes. So if this is all connected in the same universe, hypothetically speaking, this movie does well. Madam Web 2 and 3 come out. These Spider Women are saving New York. When Spider-Man finally shows up in New York City, are they just like, another one?
Yeah.
Or is something going to happen where just like, we're just kind of going to forget that these 4 Spider Women have been fighting in New York for the past 20 years.
They've been doing in the shadow work. And nobody really has ever seen or know about. Criminals say, like, yeah, these crazy broads came in from the ceiling and they beat me up. But nobody knows that they are Spider-Woman or anything like that. Then Peter Parker comes along and he's out in the open, letting himself be seen.
He's a friendly neighborhood guy.
So everybody knows of that one. And they're like, oh, well, maybe it's our time. We can come out of the shadows and be a part of some bigger society.
But that sounds real dumb.
Yeah. And that's the main problem. Movie's dumb, bad. I think I gave it like a D-. Like, I couldn't give it an F.
No, I'm going to give it an F.
I gave it like a D-. So, how could we save this? You and me, we love pitching.
Can I go first?
You absolutely could go first. Okay.
Well, now, let me preface this, which I wish I put more thought into it than I did, but this is just what I came up with today. Mm-hmm. Just a loose thought idea. And my goal isn't to completely rewrite the movie.
No.
I want to keep as much of this movie intact, but just change a couple things. And I'm only really going to add like 1.5 characters.
Okay.
So I still want Ezekiel Sims to be the villain. Mm-hmm. I still want him to be going after the 3 girls.
Because of a vision?
Sure.
Okay. That's the problem I'm having the most trouble with.
Okay. So here's my pitch. Dakota Johnson is not a EMT. Okay. She is a reporter. You can still have the original backstory of her mom going to the Peruvian jungle.
Sure.
That's all fine. And so she's a reporter, and she's a great reporter. And people are always joking. It seems like you have like a sixth sense about you're such a good investigator, and you kind of always ahead of the story, and you're one of the best reporters we got. You're always going, and that's what makes her a good person, is because she's like fighting injustice by like getting the story, trying to bring people down. And the latest thing she's trying to do is there's this business tycoon, this Jeff Bezos type, Ezekiel Sims, who seems to be running this city, but no one can get an interview with him. He kind of works in the shadows. Like, there is rumors that he's involved in arms dealing or drug trade, or like he's got all his hands in the pot of New York City. He's the criminal underbelly. It's just no one can really prove it. So she makes it her mission I'm going to expose this guy.
He's Kingpin.
He's Kingpin, essentially. And at least that gives him sort of, he's businessman / bad guy because he's a gangster. He's, like he said, he's the Kingpin. Or he's the Kingpin before the Kingpin. Maybe that's another fun, I didn't pitch that, but now to bring it up. Maybe Kingpin is his, like, muscle, but like a young Kingpin, and it's before he gets like huge.
Yeah.
But and then when Ezekiel eventually falls in this franchise, however long, that's when Kingpin moves in.
Perfect.
So there's a fun thing. I didn't even initially have that. Thank you, Ben.
You're welcome
for the assist. So Ezekiel Sim, he hasn't been having this vision for 30 years. He's just been using his spider powers, but suddenly something happens where he gets a new vision and he sees 3 girls bring about his death. And it's these 3 high school girls, and they all go to the same high school.
Okay.
Maybe it's the tech school that Miles will eventually go to, or that Peter could go to, whatever.
But they're smart people.
But all 3 girls are smart.
Okay.
One can still be the rebellious one can still be the shy one, and one can be like the smartest of the 3, I guess. And so they're in class, and they have this teacher, and the teacher is Dakota Johnson's sister, but the sister is played
Montana Johnson.
The sister is played by Dakota Johnson. She's twins.
Twins, okay.
Yeah. So in order to get access to these girls, because he can't just walk in here and murder these girls or whatever, he needs to make it look. It's like, how do I, get access to? Oh, they're going on a field trip to Peru. Oh,
okay. That's a crazy senior trip.
Yeah, whatever. It's Spanish class, and it's a nice school in New York City, so they have the money too. The one is, a super rich girl; she can afford the trip.
Sure,
or it's not even necessarily a trip. It's like, oh, I want to sponsor your school because this money. It looks like an act of charity. Okay. I want to send your class with these 3 girls in it on this trip to Peru because this is where I've harnessed my spider colony or whatever the fuck. And Dakota Johnson's teacher sister is just like, hey, I'm going on this trip with these girls. It's sponsored by this guy. It's like, oh, this guy sponsors the trip. Oh, yeah, he's going on the trip with you guys. That's interesting. Let me come with you as a chaperone. But really, she's just trying to get the inside scoop on this guy. So they go, this guy, Ezekiel, is using it as an excuse. Like, I'm going to try and lure these girls away from the trip and kill them and make it just seem like an accident or whatever. And long story short, these three girls, like, get run away from this scary spider guy who's chasing through the thing. They run into the colonies. They all get bit. They fall into a spider's nest, and they all get kind of bit by these things. And that's how they sort of get their powers. Now, they don't necessarily awaken right away.
Sure.
Maybe,
I mean, it took Dakota Johnson 30 years.
It took Dakota Johnson 30 years, yeah. It's just like now there's something that will activate their X gene or whatever down the line.
Yeah.
That's not important. They don't necessarily need to have powers in this, but they know something is going on. And since Dakota Johnson is chaperone, when those three girls are getting chased by this guy, she goes after him, and her sister gets killed by Ezekiel Sims because he doesn't realize that there's two of them there, because it's not like he was on the plane with them.
Yeah.
So and maybe Dakota Johnson is also in the vision. It's Dakota Johnson and the three girls are the thing that kills him. So he kills Dakota Johnson's sister, thinking that it's her. So he's like, all right, I've ended that vision. The three girls, he thinks they're dead, and because they fell into the pit of spiders, is like, no one survived that too many spider bites
or a cave or
whatever.
Something, yeah.
He just assumes they're dead, and Dakota Johnson's dead. But Dakota Johnson's like, well, I'm alive because you just killed my sister, but that at least gives her a reason to hate him even more because you're the reason my sister's dead. I know you're into shady shit. You tried to kill these three girls, and so now I need to bring down your criminal empire. So they go back to New York City, and then you still have all the mumbo jumbo of like him chasing them through the city. He's in a Spider-Man outfit, whatever. Fast forward to later in the movie where she's in the ambulance and she like runs into him. It's sort of in that scene where they're getting away, where a bystander tries to like see, he knows something that's like, hey, stop. And it's a man and a woman, and this woman gets killed. That woman is J. Jonah Jameson's wife. Wife, yeah. So she is murdered by a masked man in a very similar Spider-Man outfit who has spider powers. And so you see this man, and you find out that that is J. Jonah Jameson, who is devastated because his wife is murdered by a masked person. And so that at least will set... Oh,
and that's Dakota Johnson's boss.
Dakota Johnson's boss.
Got it.
They never say that she works at the Daily Bugle. She could work for the New York Times. She could work for any magazine. And you never see her boss until...
And since is it in the past still? Are we in 2003?
Sure.
Okay. So maybe...
He's a young J. Jonah. Yeah, maybe he's on the staff. He's not the boss.
They're rival reporters, you know? It's a Lois and Clark sort of situation.
Yeah. So I don't have all the details of how that played it. But basically, like... That's all that gives J. Jonah Jameson backstory. That gives your main character even more reason to hate this villain and not just be like this random bystander who just happens to have this vision to have to protect these three girls. She also has a mission to bring down his criminal empire, and and you give backstory to Kingpin. You give backstory to James. You give backstory to all the characters who aren't like necessarily hardcore Spider-Man canon quite yet, but you know they will be in the future. This is the early stages. And then, you defeat him in however way, what matters. It doesn't fucking matter. And
does Dakota Johnson have her powers? Does she see future stuff? Does she predict death?
So when she goes to the Peruvian jungle with those girls, it doesn't have to be the Peruvian jungle. I'm just saying it because we're trying to keep it in this. They all get bit, but because... Well, she does have her powers because her mom, like all that stuff in the beginning kind of played out the same because her mom does get bit. So that's kind of what she always kind of had powers, and that's what made her a good reporter. Yeah. Because
she knew when you were lying.
She had a sixth sense about it, or a spider sense about it, whether she realized it or not. It just didn't activate to its full potential until
the
accident happens or whatever. And
is she blind yet, or she get blinded? Because that'd be kind of cool.
I think that's another thing I want to change. Is so the initial spider bite that happened when she was in the womb or whatever, like gave her enough strength to like grow up normally, but now her body is degenerating.
Okay,
and so when she goes to the jungle with these girls, like things aren't working properly, and she gets bit, but instead of it's kind of like a steroid, and she's able to sort of like get back to normal. And so I think maybe that could activate her powers. Like I said, this is a soft pitch I just came up with today, but I was more interested in like, oh, this is how I can incorporate J. Jonah and Jameson into backstory.
And then what if, like, you know, she's feeling weaker and she gets bit and like, I've never felt so good, but then it starts failing again.
Exactly.
And she's getting addicted to it. She's almost like an addict. And I need to be able to walk. I need to be able to see. So I keep doing it. But then she realizes when she lets that go, she loses her vision, loses her ability to walk. Her powers are even that much greater. She can see the future even better. More timelines.
Or like this guy's been. He's only was able to find that one spider, and so he's been having that spider bite him every week or whatever. Maybe it's the whatever is giving him the powers is becoming weaker and weaker each time, and maybe this constantly getting these spider bites is causing him to like kind of go crazy.
Okay,
and that's kind of what's making him become even more of a madman.
Yeah,
where like for her, because she was bitten in the womb,
it's part of her.
It's part of it, like so it doesn't have the same effect. Like it lasts longer and makes her better. So when she becomes the woman in the chair at the end, she's like, oh, I can stay here, and then the other three girls can go out and fight crime or whatever. They don't need the toxins because the one girl builds the spider arms, or who gives a fuck? It doesn't matter. But she's able to, okay, if worst case scenario, I can get a spider bite and then go out and fight crime for like a week before my body starts failing me again, and then I can just go back to being the woman in the chair who is more of a guide, the oracle who can who can give the spider people their missions and stuff. So there's something there. So that's my pitch.
Okay. Better than anything I have, because I had such trouble trying to figure out a story for this that didn't involve him seeing them killing him. Because I figure if he is trying to kill them and keeps stopping it, he's going to eventually cause them to get their powers. And that will be the self-fulfilling prophecy. If you would have just left it alone, they would have never gotten their powers. They would have never came after you. But you went after them. They got powers. Now they have to kill you. But that doesn't happen. So I was trying to think of ideas of, well, how do you get all three of the girls in his high-rise apartment? Because that's where the spider is. He's trying to kill them there. The spiders get loose. They all get bit. It was all just very lame. So I really just kind of have a smattering of ideas, and we could just bounce them off each other and see what we could do with them. One, don't worry about the timeline. Don't set any sort of specific year for this. It could just be vague. And you could always retcon it as, yes, it did take place in the past, or no, it was modern day. We don't need it. 2, have Spider-Man just there. Don't name him. Don't reveal him. He's just a figure in the background. He's been around for years. This crazy guy showed up, and he's there. This allows Sony to have a Spider-Man in their universe, but not worry about casting or what anybody else is doing with their Spider-Man. They have one in the chamber and not relying on, well, maybe this one's Tom Holland. When Emma Roberts gives birth to him, then it will sync up with the MCU. Sony, your shit is never going to sync up with the MCU. I know because they wanted for the next Spider-Man 4 to be the Sonyverse. Bring Toby and Andrew back, fight all the Sony villains with them, and Disney said, no, we want to ground level this. This needs to be like a Kingpin sort of story. Something smaller, let him be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man and not have the same adventure that he had last time. So Sony, it's never going to happen. It's not going to work. And then having this Spider-Man in the background here makes sense for Morbius, because Vulture shows up and says, I don't know why I'm here, but I bet it has something to do with Spider-Man. And Morbius is like, interesting. Does he know who Spider-Man is? There is no Spider-Man in that world. So now that would make a little more sense. And then there's really, it's important for Venom, but for how those movies played out, Spider-Man isn't necessary. And it takes place in San Francisco, so Spider-Man's very far away. That's totally fine. God, you're good. So let me ask for Madam Web's powers. She has a vision of a bird dying, opens the window, saves its life. She has a vision of Mike Epps dying, doesn't get to save him. Her vision seems to show up when someone's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
But it happened at the baby shower. Like, balloons are popping and they're doing the guessing game, and she's having these visions, but nobody dies. So is her power like a death-based thing only, or is it random? Was that just her getting used to the powers and it was just popping up? Because we never saw anybody, like, you know, playing a scratcher, like, oh, give me the $5 one. And then it's a loser and she comes up and goes, get the $20 one. Trust me. And so it's a vision of the future, but it doesn't involve death.
Mm-hmm.
So inconsistent there. So
I took it as an interpretation of it activated for her in like a stressful situation.
Okay.
So the balloon popping
triggered it.
Okay. I think she was doing something with the mic, or she like dropped a jar, or maybe it was just the bird hitting it. Like that scared her. But I guess it would have to happen beforehand. Whatever. How it works is stupid.
Yeah.
But the point is, I just took it as like something kind of ignited very much in the same way, like hitting her head gave her the powers. I think in the early stage it was just a stressful situation is what I caused it.
So I don't like her whole thing is the visions, blind, handicap. Cool. Our villain should not be having visions. I think that's incredibly boring. I mean, he's an incredibly boring villain, so
sure.
it makes sense. But I kind of wish this was Madam Web already paralyzed, already blind, and her thing is she's narrating to us there are many universes out there. There's lots of outcomes. Like, she's aware of Spider-Verse stuff. Like, if anything, they should be stealing from Spider-Verse than instead of trying to steal from the MCU. So she would even be someone even higher than, what's his name, Miguel O'Hara?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, he's doing that. He has a Spider Society, but he is just one version who's doing that. I've seen every version of Miguel who's done that. Like, I'm above that. And she's
Jeffrey Wright's character from...
she's the Watcher.
The Watcher, yes.
Yes, but without being an ethereal being. She's not from the future or anything. This is what she does. She sits in her wheelchair and she sees all the different timelines. And this is a timeline where maybe she's purposely not allowing Spider-Man to exist. Anytime that there is someone who can get that power, she's stopping it. Because she knows, and I know it's not a fan favorite, and I guess Ezekiel Sims works for these guys in the comics, but the weird vampires that come and eat Spider-Man, like, that's what they feed off of. They go through different multiverses and they kill Spider-Man, because that's like the best blood is Spider-Man blood. So she knows of these things existing and doesn't want anyone to suffer that fate, so she's not allowing anybody in this world to become Spider-Man. But then, for some reason, Ezekiel Sims shows up and she wasn't able to see it. Maybe that's part of his powers. He
negates her.
He negates the psychic stuff. She can't see what he's doing, but she can see the effects of the things he's doing. And like with his Venom touch, which I thought he would use more, I
forgot about the Venom touch.
I wish he possessed people, kind of like the ants that get bit by the Last of Us fungus.
Yeah.
It's something like that. He's able to touch you and turn you on. So like maybe he wants an army of spider people, and he's able to tell who's going to be the best or whatever, and he wants these girls to become spider people because he can control them, and his empire of whatever the fuck he does is even stronger. Or Madam Web sees what he's doing is really bad, and she's looking way down the line, and this dude is going to start the first domino that brings down the world, or just New York, whatever. And so we need heroes. And she decides, like, these three girls are the ones that are going to do it, and she puts them down a path. She closes this subway, so it causes them to go take surface streets, and then she causes a car accident, they go down an alleyway, and affects their lives, so then they are all bit to become Spider Women. And I think it would become a betrayal. Like, how dare you do that to us? You upend our whole lives to turn us into something we never asked for just because you said this is going to happen. I think there's some drama for them. But then the main problem of this movie is, how do you have three superhero origin stories in one movie when you also have the Madam Web character and the villain character? And I know Sony probably thought the same thing and thought, this is the prequel. We'll get to them later. So maybe it's not three. Maybe it's just one. You just pick one of the best ones, and because of who she is as a person, Madam Web deems this is going to be our champion and going to be the one that stops. And then you can focus on one person and all of their troubles and let them learn with great responsibility comes great power. Yeah, it's like I can't pin down an actual story because everything in this movie is so stupid that it's hard to even piece it together to make it somewhat coherent.
Yeah, I think the only problem with your pitch is that, you know, there's talk of multiverse fatigue. It's like, well,
sure,
we've had so many movies of multiverse. Do we really want another like power spider person who can like do the multiverse stuff? And also, oh, we're gonna put her in a chair. Like, I was also thinking about that too. It's like, would this movie have been better if she was just in a wheelchair and blind from the get go?
Yeah.
But it's like, well, that was kind of Morbius's thing. So you can't have the writers of Morbius do like, oh, the person with a physical disability getting powers, and you know,
but that doesn't
it just
work.
Seems like you're just repeating the same formula
for yours, where it's she needs to constantly keep getting bit to keep her powers. Then I would say that's Morbius, because he needs to keep drinking the blood, or don't drink the blood as much because he will or won't become Morbius.
Well, no, she has the powers. It's just she needs to keep it in order to like not be in the chair.
And I think in mine, there's none of that.
Sure.
She's just blind. She's in the chair. There's no getting out of it. And she just has her powers. And so she doesn't leave her apartment the whole thing. And there'd probably be a scene where Ezekiel Sims finds her, puts a knife to her throat, and she's just astral projecting to the girls or the girl. And then that projection just goes away. And you're like, oh, Cassie, where'd you go? Oh, she's in trouble. You know, project to her and tell her to come meet me. And blah, 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 blah. I just think we have too many characters. And
I don't care about that.
And I don't care. Yeah, especially when you see them using their powers. Have you looked up their powers?
No.
They're stupid. So the Sydney Sweeney one has, you know, strength, spider sense. Like, they all have the wall crawling and things like that. And she could create psionic webs. And that's what when she's shooting the laser and stuff. That's not a spider thing. Spiders don't have psionic anything. Just give her regular webs. Make her the most normal of all the spider people. She could do all the things Peter Parker does. The Hispanic girl, I'm so sorry. I don't know names.
Arya.
Yes. Her, in the comic, she can create like a carapace over herself, so it would protect her.
Okay.
So I think that would be fun, where maybe she doesn't have webs. She could still wall crawl, but she has the best spider sense out of all of them because she needs it, because she needs to be able to create a hardened shell. And so she's the bruiser.
Okay.
And then the black girl,
Maddie.
Thank you. Those legs that come out of her, they grow out of her. And she also can fly. I don't think you should do that, but I would say all of her bones are really hollow. So she's very, very light. She's flexible. She could like contort and get underneath like small cracks. Her bones are almost like squishy. So she can maybe take some damage, but she's not the strongest. She can't wall crawl, like she can't stick, but she uses those legs to crawl on the walls. And so then now you have 3 spider people with varying powers and different abilities that can help for whatever situation. But, you know, mechanical legs when she's not even like known to be this genius level or anything.
Yeah,
if it was Peter Parker, sure, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But why does she have it? Who knows? And then what does the other one have? Like, I don't even remember in that flashback what she does that is so special. Does she just use webs?
I think she just used webs.
Yeah. So, and then I've also heard this should have just been a Silk movie. We can't do live action Miles Morales. It will taint the Spider-Verse movies.
Mm-hmm.
We've done Peter Parker to death. We can't seem to settle on one Spider-Woman. So why not do something like Silk? And you have Madam Web taking her under her web and showing her the ropes.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't understand them needing to do all three of them, besides saying we need to get them in theaters and test market the shit out of it, and hopefully one of them lands. Like, no, just spend the time and make one of them really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and cut out all the Uncle Ben shit and the Emma Roberts stuff. We don't need any of that.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be in there, but if it's going to be in there just for the sake of it, I think maybe it would have been better to cut Uncle Ben. Like, he could still work at the paper, and like they'd be friends, but he's off in another.
This is for your pitch.
For my pitch, yeah.
Okay.
Like, Uncle Ben is just off doing a thing. Like, he's the tag at the end of the movie. It's just like, oh, hey, Ben, I'm so glad you're back from
your honeymoon,
Russia, or your whatever that is.
Yeah.
And you just, maybe he's like, oh, what are you doing over there? He's like, oh, I'm typing it, because you know how the newspapers sometimes they'll put births and deaths and stuff. It's like, oh, I'm just typing this up, and then you just see like Peter Parker born. You could do that shit.
Sure, you can. I don't think we need any of it, unless Madam Web is, I've seen the future and I've ingrained myself into the Parkers' lives because I know this Peter Parker is going to be important.
Or like he types it up. It's just like, oh yeah, my nephew was born. Check it out, and she reads it, and then seeing that name, you see a flat, and it's like a silhouette. You don't, it's
outlines,
kind of but you just see something like swinging this, and she just goes like, oh, congratulations, you had a great kid there. So whatever the fuck, I don't know.
You're gonna be real proud of him one day.
Yeah, I think that kid's gonna go on to do great things. Yeah, and then cut to. Directed by
sure. And when he says
we should write movies, man.
When he says he doesn't need a ride at the library, just let him go. Otherwise, you're dead. Anything else? You got anything else you want to say? Costumes? What'd you think of the costumes?
One, it's crazy that every shot of all the superhero action in this movie is in the trailer.
It's in the trailer.
The amount of time you see them in the trailer in their costumes is the amount of time you see them in the movie in their costumes.
Disgusting.
When you see them in the costumes, it's so quick. I can't really get a judge if they're good or bad, which just makes me think that they're probably bad looking.
Yeah, probably.
Because I don't get a good look at them.
Too much of their face is showing.
Especially the spider legs one, because I feel like every shot of her was blurry.
Yeah.
And I think it was just to like hide the special effects.
Yep.
Like the best shot you get is the Sydney Sweeney one, which is fine looking, I guess.
Sure. What about Ezekiel's?
Ezekiel, it's a Spider-Man costume?
I think it looks too much like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And they needed to change those eyes or have multiple eyes like spiders usually do. Really change it up. I see his inspiration of the spider people of Peru in his design, but the mask is something completely on his own, and it's too much like Spider-Man.
Yeah, I think the Peruvian Spider-Man were like legitimately scary looking.
Yeah.
Like that would have been a terrifying costume, and I don't think anyone would have been like, "Can you describe the guy?" It's like, not really.
No. And why does he even have a costume? Because we don't know what Ezekiel does.
Yeah.
Why does he even need one? Why doesn't he just wear like a black stocking over his head?
Sure.
Why does he have to have this elaborate costume to
Maybe
do
it's bulletproof?
What? To do what though?
Is he robbing banks?
Is he stopping criminals?
Killing cops? What's he doing?
Yeah, no idea.
He's banging CIA agents, I guess, who can give him access to technology. Which also,
did he need to bang her?
Mad been?
Oh yeah. And what happened to her? She's like sitting in the tower, like, boss. Hello, boss. You gonna answer?
Did you sign the paycheck?
Did you get him, boss?
I know we're going like just back to the movie. We should have just ended on the pitches.
Yeah, that's fine.
This is also, it doesn't really matter too much, but at the beginning it was just like Cassie's mom is saying, "Oh, I'm looking for these spiders. No one's ever seen one in person or whatever." Well, then how the fuck do you know it exists? Or maybe she said it's never been captured alive or something like that. But
maybe never been photographed.
Been photographed. It's like, so you're just hearing rumors of it? You're basing your entire, like, I'm going to save my daughter who's probably going to die, who might die in my womb, to go on this Peruvian trek through the jungle to find a spider that no one knows if it actually exists.
And then when she says, the venom of this could have like life-saving properties. It could help so many people. Oh, you mean like the crazy superheroes of the jungle? Don't be ridiculous, you fucking idiot. There's no people with special powers helping people in the jungle.
But there are spiders.
But there are spiders that can do that to you.
Yeah.
Make up your mind. Oh, Lord. I think I probably have a million other things I want to bring up. There's so many small little dumb things.
There's a professor who has a Lord of the Rings podcast where he breaks down, like, line by line the entire text of Tolkien. I think he's got 500 episodes and they're still in the first book or something like that. Like, that's how in-depth they get in this. You could probably do that with this movie. Let's break it down line by line and go, how the fuck is it this bad? Or why is this here? This doesn't make sense. This movie could be an entire Harvard class on, like, how not to make a movie.
It'll be interesting when the CEOs have all changed hands and it's a whole new set of people in 20 years that they could come out with a book and say, what the fuck happened with the whole Sony Pictures universe of Marvel movies? Because I really want to know who signed up on this, and did they actually have faith in it, or was it just a cash grab? Was it just a hold the rights? What was it? Because Dr. Octopus makes a better, more compelling character than Morbius. Why even do it? God, we could ask why until we're blue in the face. We're not going to get answers for many years, but I think that's it. I think let's short and sweet. And by short and sweet, our main topic was almost an hour and 40 minutes long. Next week, I think the only thing that's coming out is Drive Away Dolls, which I definitely want to see.
I'm going to be out of town next week, so I cannot record next week. I'm sorry.
Okay. So you're going to miss my birthday, huh? Do anything.
I have to check my schedule.
Yeah, whatever. That's cool. So no podcast next week. Oh, well. Well, I guess the week after that,
but
I think
we'll have True Detective to talk about.
That's true.
I should be done Mr. and Mrs. Smith by then.
Okay. Well, I should have
I did finish a movie this week, but it's not anything worth talking about.
Yeah. And then I think by then, isn't Dune like the first week of March? It's either Dune or Kong Godzilla. One of those is like first week of March.
We'll see.
There's a new trailer for Kong Godzilla.
I watched it.
That bandolier as a weapon. Oh my god, it looks so cool. Anywho.
I hate you.
If you want to get in contact with us, we are at WRPLpodcast@gmail.com. We're on Threads, Instagram, TikTok. I still post on Twitter, even though I said I didn't. I hate that site, though. But anywho, reach out to us. What'd you think of Madam Web? You don't need to say it. We all know. This is no one's favorite movie. I'm surprised it doesn't have a 0. I gotta go and read some positive reviews on Rotten
I can't wait till this is on How Did This Get Made podcast.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that episode.
All right, well, as always, I'm Ben.
And I'm Steve.
And keep consuming, but not Sony products. Unless it's video games.